show me.
Mansfield Today, hi, and welcome to the legal aspect of the show. Lance Brogden is our legal advocate who joins us on a weekly basis. Lance, last week we started off by talking about sexual harassment in the workplace, and there were so many questions that we couldn't get to, and also thought it may be worthwhile opening it up to people on legal@mansfieldtoday.com to raise some of their issues, and some of them have come through, and you have worked it into how you are going to deal with this second part of it. Let's start with one of the questions that came in, and that was, must sexual harassment take place in the employer's premises or within working hours in order for the employer to have to take disciplinary action? So now this is from an employer's point of view.
Now, Jim, why that's an important question is we talk about sexual harassment in the workplace. So why the question is important is that by default says you have to be in the workplace. No, not correct.
Oh.
It's in the work environment. So it relates to a number of things. And there are matters that have been through court and it's come out. At an after-hours function, at an independent function, where, for example, two employees are invited to the same function. If it goes, let's go back to what we were discussing last week. If it goes back to affecting that person's dignity and employment equity within the workplace, it would be a man or a woman. If it affects that, then you're going and you're affecting the workplace.
So even if you're invited to a supplier's launch of a new product,
Yep.
you are still deemed to be within the realms of that.
Bottom line, if it affects your employment equity within the workplace, no matter where and when, it has to be attended to.
Okay, before I ask you one of my questions that I want to get to, here's another one that came in that I thought was quite interesting that when you showed me. Must the perpetrator of the sexual harassment hold a more senior position to the victim? Now it's a fairly because you always expect it to be the senior harassing a junior, but can that be a reversed role?
Very much so. So let me give you a practical example, because it doesn't, what I'm saying is, no, it doesn't have to be a senior person. Think about this. So my brother owns a company. I'm a lot younger than my brother, okay? And I have a position as marketing manager, okay? My brother's wife is a PA to me in a much lower position, but she makes overtures towards me. I'm also in a compromised position because my brother runs this business. So now how do I manage that setup? No, Jim, it doesn't have to be. And it doesn't have to be men over women or women over men. I mean, a guy like you, a lot of women have come onto you at work and put you in a difficult position. I'm just glad the way you fought it over time. But this,
Yes, of course.
but on a very serious note, guys, it doesn't have to be. You often have people who, let's say a PA to a CEO, has a very powerful position, albeit people think it's only a PA. And some of the other directors could be taken on by this PA and put in a compromised position. So it's not about having a higher position in the organization.
Okay, now I'm going to introduce another aspect here. And I'm going to do it as a lawyer does it. I'm going to build this scenario slowly. Okay. So I put it to you, advocate, my advocaat. Ek stel het aan u. Must the conduct be unwelcome in order for it to amount to sexual harassment?
Okay, now you should have given me a heads up here because I've got to think of how I'll answer this. So, two parts to it. If you go back to the Employment Equity Act, and if you go back to the various papers written on it and rules and regulations around it, it must be an unwelcome overture. It must be unwelcome. If it's welcome, so we banter a lot, we tease each other, you rip me off because of my sexual orientation, but we have a good relationship that can't be regarded as unwelcome, and therefore you are not demeaning my position in the workplace. You're not compromising my career. It must be unwelcome.
My Lord, I put it to you. I put it to my learned colleague here that I accept what he's saying. What if, though, the sexual conduct was at some stage previously welcomed? And there is a third part to this which I'm going to ask after I've heard my learned colleagues' advice on this particular.
So just so I'm clear, you're saying that in the company, A and B might have even had a relationship, an affair, or in the past, A didn't mind B going after. But
Exactly.
all of a sudden now, A is saying, I have had enough of this.
Exactly.
Right. So let's go back to the principles. Even if we had previously had an involvement, a relationship, or previously it was seen in a fun light and a good light. Every time I walk in the office, the lady says to me, wow, you're looking good today. And it gets to a point where I'm thinking, no, we've gone past that line in the ground. It's no excuse that it was previously acceptable. Line in the ground is line in the ground. If it's unacceptable to be now, it's unacceptable. But once again, we go back to last week, we spoke about the CCMA and how these managers and what a magistrate does in court or a judge. When you get to those issues, they still have to weigh up all the facts involved. But as a rule, no. If it was previously welcome and now it's unwelcome, it's unwelcome. You know, I might have been single at the time, then time's moved on, I've met somebody else, I got married, and I said, just, lay off now, okay?
So basically you're saying that sexual harassment in a workplace does not need to be conduct in a sexual manner.
No, it doesn't. Doesn't. So it obviously can be physical. Somebody walks past, touches you regularly, sits over your desk, rubs you, put their hands in the back of your neck. It can be verbal, direct, and discriminatory. And once again, it doesn't have to be about, I want a favor from you. It can just make it really uncomfortable, like continue making jokes about somebody who has an alternative sexual orientation, or who comes across, a guy comes across rather feminine, okay? And we keep on making jokes and limp-wristed jokes and so on, without anything wanted in return, even that. So it doesn't have to be directly sexual. It can be verbal, it can be physical, and then it can be the hard ones where you do this for me, I do that for you.
Well, there you see your client's guilty. Your client's guilty and they must know.
Sorry, Jam, I'll argue bail for you today. We'll look at a suspended sentence for you.
Okay, then what is sexual favoritism?
This is an interesting concept. So, an individual with a degree of leverage in the organization behaves to a number of people in a certain way. And those that are amenable to this person's overtures get better opportunities, get invited to better functions, get given a better client list to go visit. So not necessarily doing something, but by falling in more, that's sexual favoritism. And what that does, it makes the other people who don't adhere to this nonsense, they are compromised in their workplace, their careers. So if there are two lists of potential clients and the person was more comfortable with my sexual approaches and demeanor to them, and I get the nice, and that person gets the nice list, and you get the C list. That's discrimination. That's where the word sexual favoritism comes in, just favoring some more than others. Not necessarily with something physical, but makes their life in the workplace easier.
Okay, I'm going to come back and revisit some particular person who we haven't revisited for yonks. I think for probably 3 months. I'm going to revisit this person.
Where does she live?
No. He.
Hey, die man.
Die man.
Wie is die karakter?
The reasonable man.
This bugger pops out of the woodwork everywhere.
Yeah. Where does the reasonable man fit into this whole scenario?
Right. Okay, now, and once again, now this goes across all our shows, everything we do. There has to be a sense of a sanity check. Right. Now, so the world has moved a lot and rapidly now in terms of let's focus on sexual harassment in the workplace, the way people treat each other. In some environments, you can't say to him as a him or a her or a it, or they call them they.
Yeah.
So that's which we didn't know that stuff existed.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I don't know, Jim, when we were kids, there was male, female, heterosexual, and homosexual. Homosexual being both men or women who preferred the same gender. And that was about it. Now it's far more complex.
Yeah.
There's a myriad. So when time changes and one look, if we go back to CCBO is a good case. When the commission looks at it, it mustn't only be too hard and fast. They also look at what would in the time of today, what would the reasonable person think about this? So, for example, you and I have been mates for a long time, and we have a bit of a fallout in the office. And in the past week, I walk in and I say, "Hey, you got a fat ass." You might say, "Hang on, this is a sexual issue." And when we call in, when the person who's adjudicating this looks and says, "What would the reasonable man think about this?" Well, the reasonable man would look back and say, "You guys have been mates. You got a bit of problem going on now. What drivel? It's just two boys throwing something at each other." And then if somebody else hears it, and they say, "Oh no, this is discrimination in the workplace." Once again, what would the reasonable person the reasonable person would probably say it's a lot of drivel. So the reasonable man test is something we don't throw out. And when I say reasonable man, it's just an expression. Man, just be a reasonable person. Once again, I'm being very sensitive now, so I'm not saying men are reasonable and women are unreasonable. I'm not saying that. I mean, but what I'm trying to say is that one has to look at a person in a similar situation, generally out there, how would they visit this issue? And that's why it doesn't go away.
Well, we're going to have to make it go away right now because we're out of time. Advocate Brogden, thank you very much for your time.
Jim, thank you. Guys, please use this. Protect your companies, protect your employees, protect yourselves. Thank you.
Yeah. It's actually one of those that you should maybe show to your employees as well. And let them think their way through this whole
Maguire.
bog
Yeah.
yeah, of stuff around. Not a bad idea. Advocate Lance Brogden, our legal eagle, right here on Mansfield Today. Thank you for joining us. Goodbye.